We need birth date, place, your serial number, driver's license.
Your ticket. We got it all handled. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Quick.
Good.
Go.
Here we are out in
Alamo.
Round Hill, California, Aunt Jackie's house
Yeah, I
on
just saw
July
her
the
a week
5th,
ago.
day after,
1992.
Yeah, I have another one.
was a kind of a family get-together. Very good.
I love mine, yeah.
Wonderful seeing your children and Jerry and all the other kids that I don't see too much of.
Here we are at the flight sign.
Good being here.
Here's the
hostess with the
hostess,
mostest,
that's right.
but she doesn't have too much on her.
I have enough.
Pretty skinny,
But you're in
but a little bit of good.
Well, you were in there, Rob.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Aunt Jack, what do you have to say? Tell us.
We're so happy to have you here, and we just saw your mom. So now we've seen the whole picture.
Well, this is wonderful of you to have us. Yes,
Stay a while.
yes.
Good. How long have you been staying?
Wednesday.
Oh, that's not very long. You're in Portland for how long? I feel like I'm posing here.
Well, here, let's get some of these other people. Will you introduce everybody?
And then you know Shirley.
Oh, yeah.
You do know Shirley.
I do know Shirley.
She's been in the family about 40 years. You're right.
And there's 50.
That's okay, honey. Just a visit. That's all right. Sorry. Actually, it feels kind of good.
Okay. Maureen.
With a personality.
Maureen.
Oh, God, go away!
Come on. Show us your daughter.
Oh, there she is, right there.
Come on.
Christine!
Well, of course you have.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
And look at Mary's kid.
It's a boy.
It's a boy.
Yeah. She at least knows the difference now. Really? Yeah.
Hi, Christina.
Those aren't x-rays. Nathan, those aren't x-rays.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
Video camera.
Christina.
Not me. This is your daddy.
Because you know why?
Hi, Aunt
Because you
Mary.
can see it instantly. What? Because you can see it instantly. All you have to do is hold around now. She loves boys. She loves everyone.
She does. She has a beautiful smile.
No more water. Go get Dad. No more water.
Hayward.
Oh, no hit. Not
I
nice.
spent about, in Hayward, I spent about 15 hours.
Dad said about shaking your bottom.
And then,
He says it looks like a girl, Pristosh.
Imaging Center owned by Alphabet, Hospital, Alabama Hospital. They're helping. They also own a Miami Humana Hospital.
No, Huggle was Huggle.
Went there,
Oh, you come up and help me. Oh, for the thing.
it's
Cruncher.
like close
Oh,
to
yeah.
Advanced Imaging. It's on California Street out by Laurel and
1992, just, wait a minute. And it happens to be 2 days after my 70th anniversary,
72nd.
72nd anniversary. I have,
Tape.
I have on, I have my first grandchild here with her family. Christine and Jerry Hayes with their dear little children. They're not little anymore, they're 9 years old. I remember them when they were babies. And they've grown up, beautiful children, and Nathan and Natalie. And they're very nice little children. So we were invited out to spend the day with my first daughter, Jacqueline. Jackie had it. And we had the most wonderful day, just a bunch of relatives. We were all there together, drinking beer, of course, and having all that comes with a picnic type kind of a day.
Mom, why don't you tell Christine about some of the experiences you had as a younger married person when your family was young also?
My own family background.
Yeah, like with your mother and your father, like when you had, you used to have all your babies at home, didn't you?
No, just one.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's go back a few years, maybe about 70, 80 years. I can remember we were a very fine, young, struggling family. My mother cooked everything and baked everything and to keep us together. And we lived in the town of Pennsylvania, Emporium, Pennsylvania. And one thing that comes clear to my mind was my dad took my sister Margaret and I to outfit us for an Easter Sunday. And my mother had already made us each a dress. So we first went to a shoe store, and oh, it was a wonderful time. He bought us each a pair of little Mary Jane, black patent leather Mary Janes. And I have to laugh now when I think of how much they cost. It was $1.10 for a pair of shoes. Now, then he took us to a millinery store to get hats, because everybody wore hats then. They had to wear hats or they couldn't get into church. So I ended up with a hat that should have been on a grown woman. And here I was only about 10, I guess. And it was a beautiful leghorn. I remember the straw. And in those days, leghorn hats were the most beautiful straw. And it had a big yellow ribbon on it. I was so excited. Then my sister Margaret, who's 2 years younger than I, she had a hat, but their hats had some big brims put on little girls, you know, but we never thought of that. We just thought we were the best dressed girls in town.
Tell her also how you used to pick up coal off the railroad.
No, I'm going to tell her something else. Then when Christmas came along, we had an elder brother, my brother Mickey, and he took charge of us during the Christmas season because he was the one that would go and cut down the Christmas tree and bring it home. We lived close enough so he would sell it. He'd make them and sell them so he could have money. But he had us just like a Hitler. If we didn't do his biddings, he'd say, "You're out of the party. You're not going to be able to come to the party." So we did anything he wanted us to do so he wouldn't not let us come to the party. And if I had to live my childhood over again, I'd like it the same way.
Well, how about when you lived on a railroad track?
Yeah, we lived in the town of Pennsylvania, and you know, times were tough.
Not town, the state of Pennsylvania.
The state of Pennsylvania.
Emporium?
Emporium is the town. And there was a railroad track that was up above us, but it was kind of high, and they knew that every time, you know, when the trains would go by, they had those open cars that they filled with coal. And every time there'd be a man that happened to be in that area, he'd roll off a lot of that coal right in front of us, and we kids would go out there and pick it up in buckets.
And that's what you used for heating your house?
Yes, we had a big pot-bellied stove in the middle of the living room. Pot-bellied stove in the middle of the living room. And we sat around and right there, in the living room, it was also a bed. You know, in those days, you made do whatever way you could, but we were happy.
How old were you at that time?
Well, I couldn't have been more than 10. 10 years old.
And then when did you move to Oregon?
Well, we moved several places before we moved to Oregon. I was about 12 when we came to Oregon, but we moved to Buffalo. My dad was a goer. He had to be going all the time.
What did your dad do, Sid?
Well, he actually in those days they didn't have little notion stores and things in the little countries, you know, and people. He peddled. And he'd carry it on his back, poor, dear, wonderful dad. And he'd have like notions and little things that women need. And I can tell you one day, he and his nephew, they always had to set up where they might know where they're going to spend the night, you know. So they came to one house, it was during the winter months, I guess, they came to one house, and they didn't speak very good English, so you can see how hard they struggled to maintain a family in those days. So they got to this house, they knocked on the door, and they wanted to know if they would be able to sleep there during the night, you know, just have a room to sleep. And the lady, when my dad said, "We sleep," and she called her husband, and he came with a gun, he was going to shoot them. They misunderstood what, he was just trying to find out if they had room where they could sleep overnight, you know.
Sure.
Huh?